Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. You are listening to Unfiltered on Real Talk Radio Network 93.3. My name is Jason Gaszak, pastor of Roots Church out in St. Clair, Missouri. Again, today, I got to just warn you right now, today, since the last few weeks, I have been talking about just some of the things we've been talking about at church. Last week, I actually kind of gave a little bit of encouraging message to everybody dealing with just stuff in general. How do we get through it? What does the Bible say? But this week, because it's been several weeks, if not probably over a month, maybe even 2 months, that I have done a show like I'm about to do today. It's called Unfiltered. Why? So I can give an unfiltered perspective of how I feel, what my views are about what's going on today, socially, politically, and even biblically in our world from a pastor's perspective. And let me tell you something. That's exactly what I am going to do today. I'm probably going to say some things that are going to offend a few people out there. Maybe not. I don't know. It depends. If you are a loyal Real Talk Radio listener, you're probably going to love what I'm going to say. You're probably going to be jumping up and down in your car seat or at home or at work or wherever you're listening. But if you're a hidden, secret listener, you're probably going to despise what I'm about to say today. But that's just the way it is, and that's how it's going to roll. So if you got a comment, you can go to my Facebook page on my post, and you can comment there, or better yet, use the Real Talk Radio app and comment in the app. Let me know where you're listening from. I would love to know if you would just jump on the app. Let me know what state you're from or what town, city, whatever you want to do. Obviously, you don't have to give your name, but just let me know where you're listening from. That would help me just know where these listeners are and what kind of fan base I have out there, if any. That number, though, actually, the Real Talk Radio app, you can go to that. But if you want to text me personally, you can also do that at 314-924-4215. Again, that number is 314-924-4215. Well, today what my goal is honestly, I'm just going to pick some topics that I've been looking at. In the third segment is the one that I'm going to be discussing, this controversial song by Jason Aldean and what people are talking about. And of course, I want to talk about that the most because I'm just extremely frustrated with Americans right now of how they're viewing this song and what they're saying. And anyway, so that'll be in the third segment. I'm also going to talk about a man groping a 15-year-old girl on a Delta airline. I'm going to be talking about how America, from a new poll that Gallup has done, the majority of Americans are absolutely against males pretending to be females and participating in women's sports. I'm going to talk about that. And then the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to talk about this article. Here's the headline from Yahoo News. It says, Americans are widely pessimistic about democracy in the United States. And that is what this APNORC poll finds, founded on Yahoo News. And let me just read a little bit of this because it doesn't surprise me at all that a lot of Americans are absolutely frustrated with our democracy, which, again, we do not live in a full democracy at all. We live in a representative democracy, which means we elect people that we believe are going to fight for our beliefs of what we want. Those people then vote according to that. And what some of the issues are is some of those people that we're voting in are not fully supporting their viewpoints. They're changing it. They're whatever. But most importantly, it boils down to Americans that are frustrated, that are not getting out to the polls, that are not even registered to vote. And then you wonder why our country is going down the tubes. So it says about 1 in 10 U.S. adults give high ratings to the way democracy is working in the United States. That's 10%, people. 10% of U.S. adults, according to this new poll, give high ratings to the way our democracy is currently working in the United States and how well it represents the interest of most Americans, according to this poll. That's not a very good number, people. But yet, why are we still dealing with this? I don't understand. Why are we still just being okay with the administration that is currently in there? We were frustrated before this last election, but yet somehow we got blown out of the water. A lot of you believe it was rigged. I believe it definitely was partially rigged, but I also believe that if Americans would actually get out and vote and let their voice be heard, I think we could show America what we are really about. Because only 10% of the people are in agreement with the way things are going right now in our government. It says majorities of adults say that U.S. laws and policies do a poor job of representing what most Americans want on issues ranging from the economy and government spending to gun policy, immigration, and abortion. The poll shows that 53% say that Congress is doing a bad job of upholding the democratic values, compared with just 16% who say it's doing a good job. The findings illustrate widespread political alienation as a polarized country limps out of the pandemic and into a recovery haunted by inflation and fears of a recession. What do you mean, fears of a recession? We're actually in a recession. It is terrible right now, the cost of things. Everything has gone up, but yet the people's wages are the same. There is a complete 10 to 12% increase from what I found out in our economy in inflation, which is the highest it's ever been. That's almost 4 times the inflation rate of what it's been in the past years. A family that is barely surviving cannot survive on those type of inflation rates. To say the least, with all the different government policies that people are putting in play with transgenderism, the LGBTQ plus community, abortion rights, racism, all the different rights that they think everybody has, which I talked about several weeks ago, that most Americans don't have the right to what they think they have. It's called a privilege. And of course, though, when you're talking about the left is always talking about white privilege. White privilege. My age, okay, me personally, I'm 48 years old. I'm a white American that is 48 years of age, married to a beautiful woman for 27 years. I have three amazing kids and 2 grandchildren and a dog. And yet I'm a Christian, but yet I'm the most hated person in the world. My type, white male in his mid-40s, late 40s, is the most hated person in the world. And people say it's because of white privilege. Well, the last time I checked in my life, no one gave me anything. And honestly, we are all privileged to live in this nation that we live in. Every single one of us are privileged to live in America. I dare you to go into another country and go ahead and start living under their laws, under their regimes, under their, I don't even know what I'm trying to say here. I can't think of the word. I'm just so aggravated right now at America because they're not standing up and fighting for our beliefs and what we stand for. It's unreal. And the thing of it is we have to do something about it. We have an opportunity coming up in the next year that we can make a difference in this nation. And what needs to happen is all of us that agree with what I'm saying right now, that we are sick and tired of what is going on in our government. We are sick and tired of the ideology of transgenderism, that they should have the same right as everybody else, and we have to conform to their ideology. It's a bunch of crap. If you want to be that, you go right ahead. You have the right to do that in America, but do not force your views, your values on us and anybody that is against that. That's just the way I feel. And if we want change to happen, then we as Americans need to get off our butts. We need to start communicating with people and telling them and sharing the truth with them and telling them to get registered and go out and vote. That's what's going to make this thing happen. It's the only thing that's going to make it happen. We are fed up. America is fed up. The majority of Americans are fed up. And right now, the minority, we're not talking about minority as far as blacks and Asians or whatever you people out there think I'm saying. Nope. I'm saying the minority, which is the small percentage of 10% of Americans that think everything is going the right way. They're winning the fight right now because the majority is silent, because the majority is not doing anything about it. And it's time right now. It is time to fight. We'll be back in just a moment, right after this break. All right, we're back from the break. I had to go get a drink. I hope you didn't miss anything in that first segment, but we've been talking about America. We've been talking about it's time for us to stand up and fight for our beliefs. It's time for us to stop sitting on our butt with our heads up our hind ends, just thinking that things are going to work themselves out without us doing anything. Nope, it's time for us to do something, and we've got a little over a year to do it, and we've got work to do. So I'm asking all of you listeners to help me out, share this message, keep sharing everybody else's message on this Real Talk Radio network, because everybody on this network is saying the same thing. We all believe the same thing. Within, I would say 98%, maybe 95%. We believe what we're talking about, and we need help getting the word out. So that way we don't have to deal with the nonsense that we've been dealing with in America. For instance, let's talk about this in this segment right here. I'm pulling it up right now. I don't even know what I would do. I literally do not know what I would do. And I really do believe that God would never allow me to be in a position like this right here. Delta passenger gropes 15-year-old on a flight and is arrested when the plane lands. That's what the feds say. It says, I don't even want to give this guy any credit whatsoever of anything. So I'm just going to say this male of 69 years of age of Andrews, North Carolina, was arrested after the plane arrived at Seattle International Airport from Atlanta on Sunday, July 16th, according to the U.S. Attorney's Office from the Western District of Washington. This man was accused of placing his hand on the teenager's thigh, then moving his hand under her skirt. Those are the allegations. Basically, what happened, this man was sitting in the wrong seat. He was asked to be moved to his correct seat, and of course, ended up by this 15-year-old girl who was in the middle of the row, the 3-seat row, and then her aunt was at the window seat. This gentleman supposedly dropped his headphones. The girl bends down to pick them up for him. He says he began to thank her to pat her on a thigh, which, number one, sir, you should be never touching another woman's thigh, no matter what, unless it's your wife. So you're wrong there. And number two, he said he had 8 drinks of alcohol before he got on the plane. Wrong. Shouldn't have done that. And second, he said he had a double shot of, I believe it was vodka or some type of alcoholic drink that he had while he was on the plane, saying that he was basically intoxicated, which we should never be letting people on a plane that is intoxicated. That's for dang sure, because we all know that when people are intoxicated, they do stupid things. And the Bible is very clear about that, by the way, if you want to go biblically. But anyway, I just can't imagine. I can't imagine what this young girl has experienced now. All because of some pervert sitting on a plane. And yes, he is a pervert. Any man that wants to touch a young girl in a sexual way on her upper thigh, anywhere on her body for that matter, that is not his kids or his wife, which obviously, please don't think that I think it's okay for a dad to touch his daughter in a thigh and go per skirt. That is absolutely not what I'm saying. I'm saying you shouldn't be touching a girl no matter where it is, unless she's a relative of yours and you're giving her an actual hug or something. But for a guy that doesn't even know you, and he touches a 15-year-old's thigh and goes up her skirt, it's a dang good thing her father wasn't on that plane, because I have a feeling that dude might have been knocked out. Mama said, knock you out. And yeah, I'm afraid it would not be good if that would have been my daughter or my granddaughter and I'd have been on that plane. It would have taken a lot of strength for me to restrain my anger against a pervert like that. There's one thing in my life that I just cannot tolerate. I can tolerate a lot of things. I don't want to tolerate things, that's for sure. And a lot of times I don't tolerate it for the most part. But there is one thing for sure, without a doubt in my mind, that I cannot tolerate, and that is sexual perversion with minors. Any man or woman, for that matter, that wants to sexually assault a kid is where I mean, that is a hard line for me. I mean, it is extreme for me. Just like the movie Sound of Freedom, these are God's children. And I'm telling you, you don't mess with God's children. And I really believe America needs to stand up to this crap. That's just where I'm at with it. I am just utterly frustrated that any man would think that it is okay to touch a minor's thigh and go up their skirt without getting their face pounded in. And some of you are like, well, that's not the Christian way. You know what? It may not be, honestly. But I'm telling you, when it comes to a minor like this, I think there's sometimes the only way to stop it is to fight it. That's just what I mean. That man needs to go to prison immediately. And, you know, that poor little girl is probably going to have therapy off of just one little incident. I'm a pastor, and I don't think you guys realize the amount of women in our church, just in our church that I know of, that have been sexually abused as a child from someone in their family or someone of a family friend, a boss or a coworker, obviously, anybody close to them. You wouldn't believe how many women have not said a word about what has happened in their childhood because of the fear of what those people do to them. It is a real problem, and we need men to stand up against this crap and protect these girls and boys from sexual harassment, and we need to do it at all costs. Whatever it takes, we need to set a precedence to these people that we are not going to allow this. And I'm telling you, I would venture to say that 90% of us feel this way. The problem is probably 70% of you, now this is just, I'm guessing, this is just my opinion here, won't do anything about it when you're caught in that situation. But what we need is people like the gentleman, I forget his name, on the subway station where the dude was over here harassing a bunch of people, and now he's being charged with murder because he defended himself amongst other people from harm, choked him out, killed him. He didn't mean to kill him, obviously. He was just trying to subdue him. And the whole situation is terrible, but we need more men like that to be standing up against people to defend. You're defending yourself. We live in America where if harm is coming your way, you have the right to defend yourself at all cost. Why is that so hard for people? Are you telling me that if somebody's coming at me that I just got to stand there and let them do whatever without fighting and defending myself to the extreme of maybe killing them because I fear for my life? Golly, you bet I would. And I hope you would too. But we got to understand the laws in America and what we do have the right to do when it comes to defending ourselves from harm or our families. And that's just where I'm at. And I think that's where we need to get to. I am not advocating fighting. I'm not advocating starting trouble. But what I am advocating is defending ourselves. And if we have to defend ourselves by force, then I'm all for it. I just don't think it's right. So when we come back from this break, we're going to get into the third segment. which is our meat and potato segment. And we're going to talk about the Jason Aldean song that has hit the #1 charts because of the lyrics and what Americans feel that is going on right now, but yet the far left is complaining about it. So we'll be back. We'll be back in a minute. Don't go anywhere. All right, we're back from the break, and we are heading into our, what I like to call the meat and potato segment. For those of you who might be listening for the first time, that simply means the meat and potato segment means that's the largest part of my show where I try to give the full meal of what I really want to talk about today. It's a 14-minute segment. And so I don't know. I did a series one time called Meat and Potatoes. So it was really something very substantial that I spoke about. And so I thought, how fun would it be to call that part of my show the meat and potato segment, which is the fullness of what I really want to talk about. It's got the meat and potatoes of the meal. And so listen, if you want to comment on anything that I've been talking about, go ahead and do that on the Real Talk Radio app, or again, you can text me 314-924-4215. Again, that number is 314-924-4215. I was thinking during the break, I get a lot of people that gets frustrated because, I'm pretty compassionate, or I'm pretty passionate. I am compassionate, but I'm very passionate about these topics that I talk about and the way I feel about what's going on in America and the things that we deal with and where the direction our country's heading, how passionate I am about winning people for Christ and being an example and all those great things, teaching the Word of God that people can actually understand it when they walk out of a Sunday morning experience or a Monday night experience. They actually know what I was saying and what the Word of God is trying to tell them and teach them. And that's my goal. I'm passionate about doing that. And I'm not saying I'm the only one that does that. I'm not. There are many, many, many other people out there doing what I'm doing, but it takes an army of us to do this. And I'm just super passionate. And some of you are probably wondering, how in the world can a pastor be so frustrated or say what he's saying and still be a Christian? Well, I mean, my gosh, when you go to the Bible and you look at all the different wars that went on to defend their not their rights, but they're just to defend their families and their culture and their beliefs. It's been going on since the very, very beginning of time. And what's happened is we've come into a sissified society. We are literally sissified. Men are becoming pansies, and women are trying to become men, and that's not the way God designed it. And it's frustrating that people cannot see this. It's frustrating that people cannot see that our society is jacked up all because of the ideology of the left and the Marxist viewpoint that everybody has to agree with everybody. We can no longer agree to disagree anymore. And if you disagree with somebody, you're racist, you're a bigot, you're a hater. I mean, you're just all the worst things in the book when you disagree with somebody. And that is ludicrous to think about. Because by God, the right side of society, when we don't agree with the left side, you don't see us out there calling you that. It's only the left calling the right. And truthfully, it should never be left and right against one another. Jesus is all about balance. He wants to be in the middle. He wants to reach to people on the left. He wants to reach to people on the right. And if you go too far right, you're crazy. If you go too far left, you're crazy. So it's all about trying to be in the middle. It's trying to be balanced. And so here we are. And, and like this weekend at Roots Church, we're doing a Q&A on Sunday. I'm taking a bunch of questions from the topic that I did for the last 12 weeks, God and Country. We've talked everything from how the people of God turned away from him back in Elijah's day, and how Elijah, God rained fire down on the altar and burnt it all up. And then Elijah and his army wiped all those people off the face of the earth. Not the people that turned from God, but the people that were worshiping idols that didn't believe in God. And then, of course, God's people turned back to God, and God saved them. We started there. We've ended up all the way through all the different social and political things we're dealing with. We talked about how Marxism is the new way of society. That's what they want. They want people to believe in a Marxist way. And so they're brainwashing our kids and our students to believe that, these professors. And now we see all this stuff with the LGBTQ, the Black Lives Matter, all these movements are all done by Marxists. And so the left cannot stand when the right actually fights for what they believe. And that is exactly what's happened with Jason Aldean, new song called Try That in a Small Town. And I mean, they are wound up about this song. They think that, so here's one of the articles here by Sheryl Crow, who is from a small town. She's from Kennett, Missouri. My grandma was actually born in Kennett, Missouri. I know exactly where Kennett, Missouri is, down south towards Doniphan. And we used to get tamales in Kennett, Missouri. I remember it. We'd go get tamales. They were some of the best tamales you could ever eat. And that's kind of what I remember, besides seeing my great-grandpa, who used to watch wrestling, and not just any kind of wrestling, but midget wrestling. How many remember midgets wrestling? Oh, yeah, that was back in the day, man. We're talking 40-plus years ago when that was on TV, and that's what I remember of Kennett, Missouri. But Sheryl Crow is from Kennett, Missouri, and she forcefully responds to the controversy around Jason Aldean's song, Try That in a Small Town. And here's what she says. She said she is from a small town, and she went on the offensive saying that Aldean is promoting violence with a song that is not American. That's her quote. And then you got all these critics that say the song promotes violence with its lyrics about guns, which the line actually that they're referring to is, "Got a gun that my granddad gave me." They say one day they're going to round up. And then, of course, it says, try that in a small town, see how far you make it down the road. Around here, we take care of our own. Those are the lyrics. And so here's what she tweeted on July 18th. Even people in small towns are sick of violence. There's nothing small town or American about promoting violence. You should know that better than anyone, having survived a mass shooting. This is not American or small town like. It's just lame. That's what Crow said about Aldean's song. Well, of course, because all these people are criticizing Jason Aldean for this song, here are some of the things that people are saying. I just, oh my Lord, the nonsense. This lady, I'm not even giving names to anybody else. It says, I'm from a small town. I'm as rural as they get. These lyrics are gasoline for some folks that will hear them. They are dangerous and irresponsible. Your lyrics don't represent me or my neighbors. Do better. Hang on a minute. So what you're saying, ma'am, it is a woman. What you're saying, ma'am, is that Jason Aldean's song, his lyrics, are responsible for someone's behavior. Hello, the last time I checked, the person that creates the wrong behavior is the one that should be responsible. No one makes me do anything. I do things on my own. And if I'm influenced to do something bad, that's my problem, not the person that brought the influence, by the way. Yeah, it's called, hey, America, why don't you take some responsibility for your own actions for a change instead of blaming everybody else for your own stupidity? Just like guns don't kill people, people kill people with weapons called guns. And that's what happened on Route 91 in Las Vegas years ago when Jason Aldean was performing and a mass shooter started shooting up people out of a window. A crazy man, a mentally disturbed person. You have to be mentally ill to do any kind of mass shooting. And every mass shooting that we've seen are mentally ill people. This person says, another woman says, yeah, it's not promoting violence to say, it's not promoting violence to say the violence in the video are peaceful protest. They actually told people to get in our faces, go out and flip cars, murder, start fires, graffiti, build encampments on private and public property because it's peaceful. That ain't at all what the song is saying, lady. That is not even close. Let me read you the lyrics. He begins talking about what these people are doing, these crazy people, these people that are causing violence. And he says, you sucker punch somebody on a sidewalk, you carjack an old lady at the red light, pull a gun on the owner of a liquor store. Yeah, you think it's cool? Well, act a fool if you like. Cuss out a cop, spit in his face, stomp on the flag, and light it up. Yeah, you think you're tough. These are literally real situations and real video clips of this particularly happening right now in America. And he's talking about, he says, this is the kind of people right here. He says, well, try that in a small town. See how far you make it down the road. Around here, we take care of our own. You cross that line, it ain't going to take long for you to find out. I recommend you don't. Try that in a small town. So that right there tells me, go ahead and try what you're doing in a small town, because we look out for our own, that we won't allow that nonsense in a small town. And he's saying, try it. I dare you. I dare you to try it. See how far you get. I don't think he's promoting violence. I think what he's saying is we need America to do what a small town would do. And he even says, I recommend you don't do it, because that ain't going to fly in a small town. So it's better for you to keep the peace, stay on your own side, say what you want to say, have your own beliefs, but don't try to bring violence into a small town. Don't try to spit in a cop's face. Don't sucker punch somebody on the sidewalk and think you're going to get away with it, because somebody's going to beat your hind end in a small town. And then it goes on and says, got a gun that my granddad gave me. They say one day they're going to round up, talking about the government, is going to round up and catch, take all the guns away from gun owners. Well, that, and he says the S word, but that crap might fly in a city, but good luck. Try that in a small town. Do you think that rural America is going to give up our guns to the government easily? I mean, literally. I dare you to come take my guns away. That's what he's saying. You will find out what's going to happen. That's not promoting violence. That's called defending yourself. That's called saying, I dare you to come try it, because you're going to find out what's going to happen. I don't see anything wrong with that at all. He goes on, and then it switches. Okay, he talks about all the bad, and then it switches, and it goes into full of good old boys, right, raised up right. If you're looking for a fight, try that in a small town. He says, see how far you make it down the road. Okay, it goes back into it. So he's basically talking about boys in a small town. They've been raised up right to defend themselves, to defend other people, to defend their neighbors and their friends, even if they don't know them and they're just neighbors, that they know that that's what you do in a small town. You gather together to take care of the community. Well, what do you see in Chicago? What do you see in New York? What do you see in Philadelphia? What do you see in California? You see people fighting against one another. Where in a small town, you don't see that. Why? Because that don't fly in a small town. People on the left, get over yourselves, grow up, and quit being such a sissified country. You need to just take it for what it is and understand that Jason Aldean and majority of Americans are saying we are sick and tired of the violence that the major cities are causing and bringing, including the movement of the Black Lives Matter movement, who causes this crap to happen. He's saying, go ahead, try it in a small town and see what happens. Well, since all this big controversy's happened, guess what? The song has hit number one. Come on, somebody. Number one song right now in America, because the people in America believe what this man is saying, and he's being run through the mud because of his beliefs. Well, it's time for you to get over it, grow up, and get a backbone. Listen, we're going to wrap this up when we come back in the last segment. Don't go anywhere. You're listening to Unfiltered. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's show so far. I'm not trying to get you mad at anyone. I am trying to get you fired up, though, so that way you'll be prepared and ready to fight when election time comes around. Be educating yourself on the candidates and voting for the person that fits the godly values that we believe and say we believe, and stop messing around with this nonsense that we're seeing. So let's end with this last little segment of males that claim to be females participating in female sports. It's quite insane, actually, but Gallup poll confirms what America believes. And that is, we got to keep women's sports female. And even though in April 2023, there were 14 state legislators who identified as transgender or non-binary sent a letter to President Joe Biden. And they proposed a ruling, or their concern was that he proposed a rule allowing men to compete in women's sports didn't go far enough. So in other words, under the rule, a school could actually look at different factors such as fairness and safety in particular sports to determine whether or not the male athletes could compete against female athletes. And so even though this proposed rule allows schools to permit male athletes to play on female teams, it wasn't enough for the group of lawmakers from these 11 different states. They said there is no such thing as acceptable compromise that limits transgender Americans' access to equal rights. And so what they want is it to be, it doesn't matter what it is, that they are to, if you are a male and you identified as a female, no matter what, you should be allowed to play in a female sport. So here's this new poll, Gallup poll. It says 69% of Americans believe that athletes who identify as transgender should only compete on teams that match their biological sex, or what Gallup calls birth gender. This represents a 7% increase from when this same question was asked in May of 2021. So it's gone up. People are sick and tired of it. And truthfully, it's low for me. Only 69% of Americans think that males should only compete in male sports. What in the world? It says 26% of Americans said that athletes should be able to play on teams designated for the opposite sex. And that's down from 34% in May of 2021. So it says a vast majority, 93% of Republicans said athletes should compete on teams that match their biological sex. 67% of independents felt the same thing. And only 48% of Democrats said that athletes need to play in sports matching their biological sex. And it said 47% said they should be able to play in any sport according to their gender identity. 47% of Democrats say that if you're a male and you identify as a woman, that you can play in a woman's sport. But less than 7% of Republicans, which is still crazy to me that you call yourself a Republican and yet you're okay with that. I don't understand it. I don't understand it at all. I don't understand any of it. To me, you got to be senseless to think that it's okay for a male who identifies as a woman to compete in a woman's sport. Men are normally stronger and faster. That's just the way God created them. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong at all with what I'm saying. That's just the facts. That's why you have male sports and female sports. You would not have a male boxer, 28 years old, fighting a female boxer at 28 years old. The man is going to crush her because he's stronger. That's the way God designed us. Don't get me wrong, there are definitely females stronger than some men. And there are definitely men weaker than some females. But when you're competing at high-level sports, those men are going to be stronger every single time. They're going to be faster every single time. It is rare that you would ever see it. That's why you see these males who are competing in women's sports dominating. Hello, it isn't that difficult to figure out. And so America has spoken. They're saying we're tired of it. It is unfair for male athletes to compete in women's sports. And this is a fact that is rooted in biological reality. And so when lawmakers push policies that would force females to compete against males, They are not just taking away opportunities from women and girls. They are also ignoring the views of the people they are supposed to represent. Do you remember in the first segment when I said 1 out of 10 Americans do not agree? They're pessimistic about our democracy. This is exactly why. The majority of Americans do not want this to happen, but yet they make laws anyway against what America wants. And the reason why that happens is because we have allowed them in there because we haven't voted. So listen here, America. You want this to change? You got to get out and you got to vote. And you got to vote for the people that support the views. Well, for me, it's the biblical views. But even if you're not a biblical person, can you just vote for moral views? You don't have to be a Christian to have morals and just common sense. And what's sad is our world has lost common sense and they have gone nuts. It's called a reprobate mind. It's called that God has released them or has given them up to their reprobate mind. And now they can't see the truth. I mean, it is so biblical, it's unreal. And so people need to understand this is where we are, and that is why we got to say something. That's why we got to talk about it. Don't allow this to revolve around your whole world, however. I mean, Jesus should be the main thing in your life. You should be living your life for him. You should be preaching the gospel. You should be sharing your life of how God has worked in your life and how he's helped you through these things to minister to other people, to encourage them and give them hope, hoping that they will do the same. But at the same time, while you're doing that, we need to be defending our moral fabric of our nation. We need to be defending our freedom and our rights in America. We need to be getting out and voting and protecting our children and protecting babies from being killed because people are irresponsible. That's the majority of abortions. Let's not talk about the small percentage of people with rape and incest. Let's talk about the majority of abortions where people are just irresponsible out there having sex and then don't want to be responsible for the child. I'm not being insensitive to those that have gone through rape or incest. I absolutely fully feel what you're feeling. And the reason why is because I've been there. So, wow, this is heavy. I get it. It's heavy. But we got to change America. We got to do something about it. And we all know that in the end, America is going to die. We know that God is going to unleash his wrath on those that have persecuted him, that have spit on him, that have mocked him, and have slapped him in the face over and over and over. The people that have rejected him for over 2,000 years, God's wrath is coming. And the wrath of God is an extreme anger that God has on those people, and those people will be destroyed. And they will be going to hell forever and ever and ever, eternity, infinity, and beyond. So you better know who Jesus Christ is as your personal Savior. Otherwise, the wrath of Christ is coming. We don't know the time or day, but we know it's coming. And the Bible tells us to be prepared because he comes like a thief in the night, like a snare. A snare is an animal trap that just, bam, real quick, takes you. So the church will be raptured, be taken up with Jesus, while the people that have rejected him have to go through wrath. Ladies and gentlemen, that is where we are. And for Christians, there is hope. And while we're waiting on that day to happen, the Bible clearly gives us a responsibility to keep fighting for our beliefs, to keep fighting for our freedom, to keep living and eating and planting and building and marrying and having kids and planning for the future until that day comes. But we got to be ready for it. And there's an urgency out there right now, people, that people are dying and going to hell. And my question is, what are you doing about it? Does your life reflect being a Christian? I mean, we're all hypocrites to a degree, but I think people know by your actions and what you do if you're a real Christian. Maybe not a real Christian, but one that's living their life according to God's word. Well, got to wrap this show up, ladies and gentlemen. It's been a doozy. But it's been fun. I hope you come back next week. Every Saturday, 8 a.m. The rebroadcast is every Sunday at 8 a.m. Share it on your Facebook page. Text your friends. Let them know about Unfiltered. You can go listen to any of my messages at myrootschurch.com. You can go to my YouTube page, follow me, subscribe on YouTube, follow me on all the socials. Otherwise, we love you guys, and we'll see you guys next time.